Hello and welcome to the MLOps Minute. To work with us on our project, before you start, you'll need to master unit testing and clean code. And rather than talk about it without being, we're going to start right away with a demo. In the previous video, we used a demo py script in which we debugged. With unit testing, it's much the same principle, except that instead of debugging a complete script, we'll be able to test and debug small portions of the script we've deliberately chosen. Let's create a file, in this case Python file. I'll call it demo_test. Then I'll select Python unit test. PyCharm has already created a small file template for me. You can see here that there's an import from a library, unit test, which is part of the core of Python, so it's natively integrated into Python. Here, there is a myTestCase class which inherits from unittest.testCase, and a first method tests something where there's an assertion. We want to check that true equals false. Of course, this is false. This script here, I can use it, run it, either by pressing Ctrl+Alt+5. I can also choose to debug it here. Well, that's what I'm going to do. I'll start a debug word. Well, I didn't set a debug point, so it's not going to do much. And I can see that it failed. On the other hand, the good thing is that PyCharm has created a configuration for me to run this test here. And you can see that it only executed this method and used this directory to run the test. And that's it. I could have set a breakpoint, but I didn't. What I can do then is go into the terminal and execute this test by hand, as PyCharm did. Using Python, we'll load the unit test module, unit test, and call the demo test file demo.test.py. And that's it. And now I've launched my unit test. I can actually correct it by setting it to true. And since PyCharm created a configuration for me, I can now run it in debug mode by pressing Alt+F5, so I'm happy about that. And that's it. And now my unit test is working. I'm over the moon. We're not testing much yet, but it's not bad. I'm going to go further. Here I have a piece of example code in the Python documentation. I'm going to copy and paste it. And what's interesting is that instead of having one test, I now have 3 tests. And that's really good. So what happens is, if I want to debug, let's take this one for example, debug. Note that PyCharm will create the associated configuration for me. Well, now I'm in debug mode. I'm going to show you a function I didn't show you in the last video. It's called evaluate expression. Here I can evaluate the results of foo_zapper. For example, I can also write code, i.e. I can make foo, égale foo. Here I check that it's true. I could even do 1 + 1 to test the result and see that it's equal to 2. That's it. I'll close this little screen and then we'll move on. That's it. So now my test passes and I'm very happy. What I'm going to do, even to go a little further, is to store my unit test in this directory. And I'll put my test here in the test directory. What I can do then is to launch this test file right now. I just need to use the test.demo test module. And then remove.py. What's going to happen now is that I'm going to play all the tests associated with my file. If I want to play all those in the class, I can add the class. And if I want to play only the test disupper, I'll select my method. So why am I showing you this? It's quite simple. It's because your unit tests, you're going to develop them on your workstation. You're going to test portions of code. The good thing is that rather than making one big spaghetti program, this forces you to make small, highly localized, independent modules decoupled from your code to develop them in this way. And develop them in this way. Once you've done that, the best thing is to test that it works elsewhere than on your workstation, and then run these command lines on continuous integration. In our case, it's GitHub action. And the good thing is that every time we push the code, we can check that it works elsewhere than on our workstation. And it goes even further. Once you're in production, when you make upgrades, this will enable you, in the event of a regression, i.e., if you're going to impact the code and break something, you'll very quickly be aware that you're breaking something. So it saves you time. Thank you, and see you soon for more videos.